Worlds 2021 group stage.
It's one of the most competitive Worlds that we've ever had.
The group's main stage is an entirely different beast.
僕らの勝ち方をしっかりと見つけて
We could not start group stages in a more exciting way. The previous two world champions.
일단 첫 경기에다가 그 상대팀 FPX라 좀 떨리기도 했는데 다행히 저희가 좀 좋게 잘 돼가지고 엄청 지금 기분 좋습니다.
Only 27 minutes in the game, and Damwon Kia have been slaughtering.
电子竞技成绩说话，我们就看后面的比赛就知道了。
We go from the world champions to the MSI champions here.
因为我个人的目标是希望小组第一出线吧，所以在星期天再次交手的话，我们也会再次赢下你们的。
Talon made him work for it, but RNG definitely the better team today.
RNG 的话，下次我们会击败你。
Oh, you just got beamed right there.
I'm really looking forward to play RNG. As we saw in the first game today, Jahu already whipped out some spicy picks.
Gen G wipe LNG off the map. They dropped a single kill.
일단 첫 다이브 정도에서는 게임 흐름을 잡았다고 생각을 했고 그 이후에 미드에서 제가 첫 번째 솔로 킬을 땄을 때 이제 충분히 이길 수 있겠다 정도 생각한 것 같아요.
일단 오늘 졌으니 당연히 복수해주고 싶은 마음이 가장 크고.
What a performance from TL. The LEC's #1 seed will fall.
I think we have a really good idea how Mad Lions like to play, and I'm looking forward to a rematch.
T1 take this game 19 minutes in.
일단 첫 경기니까 준비했던 대로 열심히 해서 이기겠다는 생각으로 했고 그리고 좀 차분한 마음으로 하려고 노력했습니다.
Faker not afraid whatsoever, pushes him back.
일단 옛날부터 같이 활동했던 선수인데
EDG is just monumentally ahead now.
T1 的话还是算是比较稳健的一个队友吧，然后应该是节奏的话，应该是从打野来带过来的。
He managed to get over the wall. Big shadow assault.
이렇게 오랫동안 남아서 또 다시 경기할 수 있게 돼서 정말 재밌을 것 같고 그리고 좋은 경기했으면 좋겠습니다.
对他们想说的是，我们一定会赢。
Everyone in this group is beatable. It's on us to, perform and rise to the occasion.
It all leads to this. Make or break.
Vitality will take them.
A new era is waiting. Make it yours.
Welcome back, everyone, to Worlds 2021, taking place in Reykjavik, Iceland. Yesterday, we saw living legends and rising rookies clash at last. And as the hero's journey continues here at Worlds, T1 and EDG arrive at the arena to face one another in a historic rivalry between the two favorites in Group B. It's pretty chilly over there, as you can see by the codes, but I know it's going to be hot on the Rift. My name is Shox, and I am joined for the first time here at Worlds 2021 by LPL's Lyric and LCS's Azael.
So happy to be here. First time we get to be in person together since like 2019. It's crazy.
It's really crazy.
First time we get to be in person together ever. Also pretty nice.
Really? Yeah, really looking forward to it. And yesterday, we have a lot to talk about. We saw 8 games. A lot was going on. Let's take a look back at what happened on day 1. I'm going to summarize it as, LCK, spotless start, really fantastic. LPL, good start, but maybe not on all accounts. NA and EU, each one win, so serviceable. And then unfortunately for the PCS, for PSG, and for Detonation Focus Me, no wins yet. What do we think about it?
Well, I mean, the important thing here is that the #1 LEC team lost to the North American team. Really, it's about the seeding.
The script is saying that we need to talk about Damwon first. This is really not my fault. But yeah, we'll certainly get back to that, by the way. But yeah, Damwon, Lyric up versus FPX and absolutely stomped them, actually.
Yeah, and I think whenever you have two top contenders going against each other, it's never surprising that the game will be one-sided if one finds a lead.
True.
And especially when you know FPX, they are known for some of these wackier games where they can lose to anyone. But Damwon coming in strong, I think the meta really fits them. And again, they looked amazing.
LCK overall looked great.
Yeah, they did look really good. I think that, you know, you can be impressed with that game against FBX from Damwon, but really I think the other LCK teams haven't faced their toughest competition just yet. You know, you're looking more to playing against the EDG type games, playing against some of the #1 seeds like Mad. I think that's where the biggest challenges will lie for them.
I do want to say though, like looking at teams like Gen.G and Hanwha, I think both did impress me. Willer looking a bit better overall than expected, and Gen.G reminding everyone, hey, you know, this might be a slower, more LCK style team, but every time they come to Worlds, they have a consistent performance. Then it's just seeing, can they make it through groups and how can they do in best of fives, because that's where they've traditionally struggled.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they've been kind of like, I don't know, put aside by the LCK fans, right? Both Hanwha Life and Gen.G, but Damwon looking head and shoulders above anyone else for now, especially because I feel that out of all the teams, they maybe had the hardest competition to start things off.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're going up against the previous world champion. They are the reigning world champions, and they smacked them down. It's hard to have a better start than
Faker
that.
has guitar, though, so he's winning. And now, Azael, let's talk about the EU versus NA clashes and start with TL versus Mad, because despite where your allegiances lie, spoiler, I was of course sad about the result. It was an incredible match to watch.
Yeah, it was a really exciting game. The team fighting back and forth. We had these long extended fights, and I think Santorin really did shine here for TL, playing such a smart, solid game, you know, trading out his life multiple times to be able to take down Carzzy, who was the key carry for Mad in this game. And it's nice to see a return to form for a guy who has struggled a bit this year, struggled with some health issues, back in the lineup, looking incredible here to start off Worlds.
I think another thing that TL did that impressed me yesterday was halfway through the game, Mad started to come back. It did look pretty decent for them despite being a loss, but TL realized, hey, we need to kite out this engage with the Ezreal, with the LeBlanc, try and bait out some of these key abilities, and it all came together really well for Team Liquid.
Yeah, I think they just played it out strategically, right? And they didn't let them get caught out by Mad, who did try and make something happen in the LEC. Mad was able to come back from a lot of games or a lot of deficits in games, but now you're at Worlds, you just can't let that happen, especially not versus a team that's playing as well as TL.
Yeah, not against North American teams, baby. Not a shot. But honestly, I mean,
don't put words in my mouth.
I don't think Mad really needs to be that concerned. It's one loss. It was a close game. I think TL played well, and I think that Mad are going to be looking at their draft, you know, changing some things up. I think the J4 didn't really work for them, and the Jax armament looked uncomfortable.
Let's talk a little bit about the meta, things like the Jarvan indeed, because one of the beautiful parts of international competition is that we're going to see the meta evolving. Plains was in the books. We saw a lot of games. We saw a lot of picks. Now we're at the start of groups, and there's a couple of things that I want to catch up on. So first off, very big on assassin junglers back in the Plains. Now a little bit less present of the champs like a Qiyana, and also of Tryndamere, which a lot of people are very happy about.
Yeah, and I feel like coming into groups is something I expected a little bit, talking to some of the group's teams, is like these champions are kind of one-dimensional and very volatile in terms of how they play out. So when you're facing better teams who can plan around these champions, they're very feast or famine.
And I think it also just changes the way that you have to play the game, right? If you want to play a split pusher like Tryndamere, if you want to play an assassin like Qiyana, it's very different than the bruisers most teams are playing in the jungle. It's very different than the control mages people are so used to playing with in the mid lane. Your entire team and your entire game plan has to shift.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you talk about something you can just plug and play a bit easier, Yuumi was very high presence yesterday. Also got first picked in the very first game, and that kind of set the tone for the rest of the day, Lyric.
Yeah, I gotta be honest, I'm with a lot of Twitter. Not the biggest fan of this champion personally, but I really like the way teams have been playing it. You're seeing a lot more of an aggressive style of Yuumi come out with her going with the Ludens build. She also got a buff to her passive, so she can play a bit more aggressively in lane. And her in those lanes with Misfortune, the double comet, the poke, it just looks so hard to deal with.
For years, we've been heralding the return of the Enchanter jungler, Enchanter supports and whatnot, and Nami actually also had a pretty high presence, so it's a different style, right? A kind of a shift away from the hard engaged Leonas and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, there's honestly a lot of them that I think are really strong in solo queue right now, and it'll be interesting to see if teams are going more towards hard engage, try to all in the Yuumi, or if they want to go towards Sonas, Seraphines, Namis, you know, these types of picks to just try to match scaling with scaling.
Well, I mean, she's pretty cute, say that, especially on the big screen. But let's talk about J4 as well. Azael, why has it not been working so far?
I honestly feel like it's a bit of a bait pick. I think that teams have been going towards it. If you want to go towards J4, I think you have to have good gank setup. I think you have to have winning lanes so that Jarvan isn't just getting, you know, invaded on it and scouted out in the jungle, because that was a problem we saw a number of times yesterday when it was coming through. Teams picking J4, 100 Thieves notably, with losing lanes, and then all of a sudden, where are you going to gank? You know, the mid jungle for the other team is actually winning, pushing you in. They're going to get wards on you. If you can't make anything happen early, you farm slower, you are less of a scaling champion, it just doesn't really work out. It feels like more of a scrim pick.
And I also feel like we saw if you pick it early, like EDG just drafted around it so well. You take things like the Graves, the LeBlanc, the Kai'Sa, like who's Jarvan going in on in Cataclysm to really keep them down and all in on? There's no one.
Yeah, Emily was very hype about the fact it has like a quad flex potential, but the value is going down just a little bit, but we'll see how the meta continues today. We have 8 more matches, of course. We have 100 Thieves. They are taking to the stage versus DFM. And, you know, across the board, as every team is playing, we're going to learn a lot more again after, you know, we didn't see any overreactions yesterday, right, Azael? So, like...
Not at all. I mean, honestly, it's one of those things where I think, you know, if the team you're hoping would do well lost on day 1, I don't think you really have to be concerned until they lose again on day 2.
Yeah.
That's where it starts to get really tough because these groups are so tight. You can drop one easy one early on, can't necessarily drop a second.
Exactly. And with so much action to keep track of, we're joining Medic for a little refresher on players to watch from day 1 of the group stage.
Thank you very much, Shox. Now, everyone, day 1 is over, and it's time to overreact. I, for one, am pretty okay with just putting our 4 Korean teams into the semifinals and calling it a day. I want to get back to grinding my mining in New World. All joking aside, though, it's no surprise that the 3 players that really stood out yesterday were all from teams in the LCK. And now, before all of you Yuumi one-tricks get riled up hoping I picked Beryl or Keria, there are no Cat Girls making an appearance in my top 3, although I can't deny her impact on day 1 as a whole. First off, let's start with BDD. In a low-kill game, BDD asserted his dominance over mid-lane rival Icon by teleporting top lane at 5 minutes and securing a kill for Rascal. Not satisfied with solely winning top lane, BDD went on to get 2 solo kills before the 10-minute mark, making Icon rethink the fact he said, "Generally, I feel LPL mid laners are stronger than LCKs." Next up, it's the man himself, Showmaker, and did he put on a show? After FPX decided leaving LeBlanc open was a good idea, Showmaker showed them the error of their ways. Starting off with a longsword in lane, he bullied Doinby and began to take over the map with kill after kill after kill. Perhaps next time banning out Showmaker's most played champion this summer is a good idea. And to round out our Korean trifecta, can I introduce you to Oner? The 18-year-old jungler for T1 stole the show on day 1 with a little assistance from everyone's least favorite feline. In the 3rd fastest game ever at Worlds, Oner backflipped his way to a triple kill, ending the game 11-1-6 with almost 30% of his team's damage. Suffice to say, Oner had a pretty good debut on the international stage. So yeah, Gen G looked good, T1 looked good, Hanwha Life looked good, and Damwon looked like the world champions they are. I guess North America and Europe got 1 win at least. Oner will get a chance to prove himself once again today as he and T1 face off against EDG in our featured matchup presented by Mercedes-Benz.
Today at Worlds, we watch a rivalry that started all the way back in 2015 at MSI, and one of the most famous counter picks in League of Legends history.
Following with a bit of on the hunt pressure, Righteous Glory just wears off, and they go in. Koro's right in the middle with Ben from Maelstrom on. That's a huge on-wall damage. Edward Gaming are the 2015 mid-season invitational champions.
Faker would get his revenge at Worlds 2017 in one of the biggest comebacks at an international event.
Gang looking to come in. Here comes your initiation. They're right through. Oh my God! Your shockwave will find them all.
Now, 4 years later, we see this grudge match once again. However, only one Titan remains from the T1 that beat EDG last time. And the LCK 3rd seed are not the undisputed kings they once were. EDG come in as the reigning LPL champions. This is a team with what looks like the strongest bot lane in the entire tournament.
With a huge Gnar ultimate. Maybe this is it. But FPX still firing out. And goes 5-30.
This is a matchup with a rich history between 2 of the oldest organizations on the international stage. And we'll see more great moments when EDG and T1 clash in our opening game.
Great breakdown there from Freak as well, and a fantastic rivalry. And we've come at the time in our sport that we have these rivalries that have now spanned across 6-7 years. And today we get a new chapter in T1 versus EDG.
Yeah, this one's exciting, right? T1 7-3 against EDG all time. Not too surprising, right? Most dominant team in League of Legends history. EDG, though, were the first team to take them down internationally in that best of 5 2015 MSI. So I'm feeling pretty good for EDG coming into this one today.
Oh yeah, I think Azael, in rehearsal at least, I heard similar things.
Yeah, I mean, I think EDG are looking incredibly strong. I do think that most people, when you're looking at the big favorites for the tournament, people are looking at the teams that are at the top of the table in the LPL, and then Dom1. And SKT, I think, is kind of looked at as perhaps a tier below. They've been absolutely dominated by Dom1 in the LCK, along with everyone else. Dom1 has gone 15-1 across their last 3 championship runs in the playoffs. So I think to really prove that they're on this level, they're going to have an incredible tournament to be able to show that they are on the level of a team like EDG.
And when we look at the mid lane specifically, 2 players that have so many years under their belts as well, what does this matchup look like, Azael, in 2021, Faker versus Scout?
I mean, I think it's going to be a really exciting one, but Scout has been so damn good in the LPL this year. He was a key component of EDG's big win over FPX, maintaining enough of dominance in the mid lane to be able to actually take down Doumbé, who had been running over teams in the LPL. People were thinking FPX was looking unstoppable coming into the finals, and I think that Scout's performance there really was the big difference maker in being able to take him down. And I think Faker's going to have an incredibly tough time against that. They're going to be looking more towards the early game, playing with Oner, playing around this really fast-paced League of Legends that SKT is kind of known for in the early game.
Yeah, and a lot of people might not remember, though, that Scout used to be the understudy for Faker. So I think a lot of stylistic things Scout did take from Faker. Both of them can play a wide variety of champions, but it does feel like this is Scout's time, and he has looked more better in recent form.
And as you rightfully pointed out, Azael, we're going to have to see some action, in the LCK. T1 is fantastic at playing the early game. From EDG, we saw different styles in the regular season, maybe a bit slower in terms of the start, but versus FPX, they turned it on as well. And as always, a lot comes down to how the junglers approach this game. So JJ versus Oner. Oner had a fantastic start, and for such a young guy, it's always great to have that first game. But Lyric, how do you think it's going to play out now that he's up versus JJ in the jungle?
Yeah, I think this one's really interesting because in my mind, Oner has tried to be more of play more of a damage role on T1, to where when I think of JJ for EDG, he has typically been viewed as the weak link. He has been more of a role player, but yesterday we saw JJ absolutely pop off in their game. So I think this one will be exciting. I think mechanically both of these junglers are very good, and this might be the most pivotal matchup coming out of the Rift today.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, I think there's a tremendous amount of pressure on Oner to be able to get T1 a lead. Their early game is what they're known for. Even in the finals where they did lose 3-1 to Dom1, they created leads in the early game, largely in part to Oner and how well he was playing. EDG are not the typical LPL team. They do play more slowly. They play very objective focused. And I think going into the team fights, when you're going up against Viper, really, I think the best team fighting ADC in the world, you have got to be playing from an advantage.
Yeah, and I love that you mentioned the early game coming in from T1, because when EDG was struggling in LPL playoffs and had to go through the lower bracket, they said in an interview, hey, the thing that caught us off guard was the aggression, was the pace. This is the kind of thing that we can struggle against sometimes, and that's what T1 have been known for.
Yeah, definitely, and I think that's where we see now a further evolution of both teams, because now you're on the international stage. Now you're up against the teams that you're not used to playing. I do hear a lot of praise coming this side of EDG, which is always weird, because I think historically you want to talk about T1 as the favorites, but I think the fact of the matter is that they still have to prove that now, and that is in part why this group stage is so interesting to me.
Yeah, it is really, really exciting. I mean, obviously the history is on the side of T1. EDG's history at Worlds has not been so good. This is their 4th time coming in as the #1 seed. They have never topped their group. They have never gone beyond quarterfinals, and they have largely been a team that comes in and has massive expectations and then flops, and they have got to be able to disprove that. The LCK has had so many great teams over the years. Obviously, T1 is the team at the top, and they're going to be looking to take down EDG today.
What are your predictions?
I'm the LPL representative.
Right.
LPL went 2-2 yesterday. They need to do better today, and EDG going to start us off with a win.
2-2, and they need to do better. Oh, to be so lucky, right?
I'll take my one win.
Yeah. What's your prediction?
I have to go with EDG. I just think that their current form looks better. I think that they're a more complete team. T1, is incredible in the early game, but they have more holes in their mid and late game, and we saw that exploited by Dom1. And I think that EDG is a team on a similar level that can do similar things to T1.
And if anything, as a final note, I think I really hope that these two teams bring out the best in each other, right? Because we do see sometimes that newer players can crack a little bit under the pressure, but something tells me that's not going to be the case in this one.
Yeah, no, again, when you have two teams that have faced each other so many times with so many familiar faces, there's a bit of a personal rivalry in there as well.
Yes. Before we go then, what is someone we haven't talked about that, because I think we all go to Oner because he had a great performance, right? The mid laners, because you have to talk about Faker, but what could be an X factor here that we haven't considered?
I mean, I think Keria has been absolutely incredible for T1 all year long. I do think that, you know, we've seen some pretty astounding performances. So, you know, I do think support matchup can be a pretty big deal here. You know, Mako is not someone that likes to roam as much. You know, he plays more for a lane. So perhaps that could be an X factor.
You agree with that?
Yeah, I feel like just bot lane in general, right? You have two of the most dominant bot lanes in the tournament going head to head. EDG definitely play more around their bot lane, in my opinion, than T1 have shown. But I think even just a 2v2 laning matchup is going to be really exciting in this one.
Absolutely. Action across the board. And whether you're a rookie or a living legend, it is time to face fate and join our casters, Medi and Fedi, to begin day 2 of the group stage.